hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't seen the previous videos, click the links down below and subscribe right over there. And yeah, bye.
A wise woman once said, "I was so ahead of the curve became a sphere. Fell behind on my classmates, and I ended up here." Now that wise woman, if anybody who doesn't know, is Taylor Swift. Now, this video is not about Taylor Swift, I want to say. I feel like that lyric really encapsulates kind of the feeling, and it's kind of the center point of really what I wanted to talk about in this video. Well, first of all, hi, thank you for clicking on this video. If you've never seen me before, my name is Aiden. I don't even know what kind of videos, very all over the place, and I'm really excited with this video specifically because I'm going to be bringing back this series that kind of started a couple months ago and was really excited about, and then I stopped for whatever reason. The series is called Soft Spoken Sessions. It's basically, I really wanted to create a like meditative feeling experience with this series where it just feels like a nice therapeutic meditation session, almost like a therapy session, where I talk about whatever my brain feels like talking about. I've done 2 other videos in the series. I did a video where I talk about having no friends in school, and then I did a video talking about growing up and being gay and everything. So I have those videos as well if you're interested in checking those out. Really quickly, I just want to say, we'll get into this video, but for anybody curious, I didn't intend to stop this series. I feel bad because I was super excited about it, and I know you guys also really like those videos, and then I just did 2 of them, and then I was like, see ya, never doing them again. And it's not that I didn't want to, it's just specifically, and I kind of touched on this in one of my recent videos, but specifically the video I talked about me growing up and being gay. That video brought a really weird attention to my social media platform and my channel in general that really made me uncomfortable. Like a lot of predatory old men being really weird, and so it kind of freaked me out from talking about personal stuff in videos. And I think you could maybe see the switch on my channel where I kind of stopped talking about personal stuff because people then started to take advantage of that, and it made me feel weird because I've always, you know, done all these videos with pure intentions and just wanting to talk about stuff, and hopefully somebody will find this comforting, or I don't hope you find it relatable, but I know a lot of people can find a lot of these heavier topics to be relatable. So that's the whole reason I started this, and I'm really excited to be bringing this back because ever since I started my second channel, which is, you know, like music and commentary stuff, I feel like it's put a lot less pressure on this channel for me, and I'm really excited to kind of just do whatever I want. And I really do love making these videos, so this is kind of the first step in doing so, which I'm really excited about. Anyway, sorry for that little tangent, but with this video, I don't have any notes for this video. On the other 2 soft spoken sessions I did, I kind of had an outline of things and like little topics I wanted to talk about. With this video specifically, I have literally no notes. I'm looking at my computer here. I have a potential title of the video. I think I'm gonna title this The Aftermath of Growing Up Too Soon, or The Aftermath of Growing Up as a Defense to a Rough Childhood. One of the 2. And yeah, I don't know, I feel like this video is gonna be kind of rambly, but well, recently, for anyone who doesn't know, I just turned 20 years old, and I feel like I've been doing a lot of reflecting. I'm always doing reflecting. I feel like especially recently I've been doing immense amounts of reflecting on just where I am and how things are going and where I want them to go and what I want the future to look like. And this year specifically, so like the beginning of 2025, like 2025 as a whole, this year has been like the most formative year of my entire life, and I've grown probably the most this year in my entire life. It's been one of the more difficult ones, I will say, just from like mental perspective, but it's also been the most important to me, and it's also been the most exciting because of the things that have kind of transpired since the beginning of the year. Now, I don't want to beat a dead horse because I've talked about this enough and I've kind of tried to stop talking about it, but I had a really rough end of last year, but in a lot of ways I'm really happy that that happened because it kind of kick-started something in me this year to really better myself and to really focus on myself this year, and I don't want to say nobody else because obviously I still care for my friends and my family, and I keep those relationships close, but this year it's been all about me, and not in like a selfish way, but in like a I have not put myself first in years, so it's time to start doing that. But it's also been interesting because with me, you know, doing a lot of reflecting, and I do therapy every single week, and I have for the past like 4 or 5 years at this point. I've had a realization this year that's kind of changed my perspective on my entire life, and it's really made me think in ways that I've just been pondering about recently. Now, this realization that I had is that I feel like my entire life I'm always trying to predict and trying to imagine situations before they happen to me, so that way I can prepare and be okay with whatever the outcome of that situation is. I don't know if that makes sense. For example, it's kind of like catastrophizing, which essentially just means you think the worst case scenario is always going to happen, but it's that plus I convince myself that it's going to happen, and then my body has like the physical pain, and I mentally am like going through the pain and the distraught feeling of whatever this made up situation I've made up in my head is. Because I think I've been so hurt and like gone through so much in my childhood, I kind of have that like defense mechanism, but it's also not a defense mechanism because I'm just purposefully putting myself through the ringer and like hurting myself with imagining these situations to be true that 99% of the time they don't end up, you know, coming into fruition. And so I have to deal with the aftermath of that even though nothing happens. Is this making any sense? I don't know if I'm making any sense. Like, for example, okay, I don't have a dog. I wish I did. But for example, like if I had a dog, I would have already put myself through the feelings of what it's going to feel like when my dog dies. That way when my dog does die, because, you know, unfortunately dogs don't live forever. That way when the dog does die, it's less painful for me because I'm like, oh, well, I already knew this was going to happen. So like, whatever. And it's like that with like also like relationships I've been in, and not even just like romantic, but also friendships. I've kind of always done that my entire life, and I've never realized that's what I was doing up until recently. I knew that was something that was always going through my head, but I kind of always chalked it up to just, oh, I'm super self-aware, and oh, I know things. Not in like a cocky way, but you know, it's inherently true. I am a very self-aware person. And another thing, this is, you know, like I said, I didn't make notes for this video, but the other thing I did put in my little notes app was, quote, "You're so mature for your age," because that's something I've always heard my entire life. I feel like everybody's always telling me, you're so mature, you're so wise. And I feel like when you're young, it's a really nice thing to hear, because you're like, oh, you think I'm like cool, and you think I'm mature, and you think I'm older. You don't think I'm young and immature and like all the other kids my age. You think I'm, you know, more mature and interesting. It's nice to hear that when you're younger, but I feel like when you get older, you start to realize that's not the compliment you think that it is. And I'm not saying, you know, people who have said that to me were saying it in a non-compliment way. I think they, you know, had good intentions and were being nice about it. But I feel like when you're placed on a pedestal growing up and people are always saying, you're so mature, you're so this, you're so that, you get to a point when you're older when you're like, oh, I'm not mature for my age. I'm actually really behind in a lot of different ways. And I feel like that's been happening to me a lot this year, where I keep having these little moments of being like, I am really not as mature as I thought I was. In a lot of ways, I am very mature. I think I come across more mature than I actually am. I convey myself, and the way I talk is pretty mature. I think the way that I go about my life is pretty mature. I'm always, you know, focused on work. I don't party, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do any of that stuff. I've always been pretty career focused with my entire life. I mean, this is my job, so, you know, I love doing this. But there's other things where I am super not mature in, and I feel like it was always hard for me because I feel like I had a moment in high school where I looked around and it was like everybody, and I think I actually mentioned this in one of the other soft spoken sessions videos I did, but I feel like I had a moment when I was in high school when I was like, wait, when did we all like get rid of our stuffed animals? When did we all start dating people? And when was it like not cool for me to show up to school with my DIY school supplies? Like, what happened? I felt like everybody else my age had gotten together and was like, okay, this is not cool anymore, we're no longer doing this or that or this, and then I was just left out of it. And then I looked around and suddenly I stuck out like a sore thumb, and it was just very confusing to me. And I also think when it comes to my maturity, specifically with school, I never felt really mature in school because I never really did that well in school. I was like a very average student, like B's and C's, kind of just did whatever I needed to in order to pass, nothing really more than that. And so stuff like that, it just, you know, it didn't make me feel really all that mature. To be honest though, I don't think I really realized my maturity level until I got into my first relationship, where we were only a year apart, but the year apart was so painfully obvious to me. And although other stuff obviously transpired in the relationship that kind of, you know, led to the downfall, I think the catalyst for everything was just the maturity level. Again, we were only a year apart, but maturity level wise, I felt like I was 4 or 5 years older than him. And that's not even necessarily something wrong with me or him. It was just something I always noticed where I was like, this is not, something's off here. You know what I mean? And with all this, I feel like I keep being like, oh, I'm so mature. These are all the moments where I realize I'm so mature. I'm not saying that to brag or to act like that's a good thing. I have grown to enjoy being more mature for my age, but there are also plenty of moments where I genuinely wish that I wasn't, and I wish that I was just a regular 20-year-old and like, you know, not so whatever. And it's also become apparent to me because I've been hanging out with people more recently that are older than me. I mean, like friends, not, you know, romantically, and I feel so much more comfortable that way. It makes me feel better because I feel more seen, and I don't feel like there's this expectation of what I should be doing or how I should be acting, you know, given I just turned 20. Oh, this video is so random. I feel like nobody's gonna understand what I'm talking about. I do think this is all kind of byproduct of me having a really intense childhood. I've been doing a lot of inner child therapy recently. For anybody who does therapy, you will definitely know this, but you really start to realize that everything that goes on in your life and the way you react to things and situations and stuff is 99% of the time because of something that happened to you in your childhood. Literally everything stems from childhood. It's actually crazy. And I had a rough one, a really rough one. And I feel like people who have a rough childhood, you kind of I feel like you fall into two different categories. I feel like you either fall into you force yourself to grow up really fast, or you get stuck at that age and you get trapped in that age of feeling young and feeling like, you know, just exuding younger behaviors. And obviously, you know, with everything I've been talking about, I obviously fall on the side of forcing myself to grow up faster to kind of deal with my childhood. I think a lot of it, whether it was intentional or not, was just kind of trying to run away from it. I think as I started to get older, I had this mentality, which I don't know why, but I think I have this mentality of my childhood was so bad, so let me fast forward to adulthood and then I can try it again. And it's like, no, you can't do that. Unfortunately, I wish that was, you know, the case. I just remember being younger and thinking the second I turn into an adult, everything's gonna be so much easier and it's gonna be so much better. And in some ways it has become easier for sure, but it's also, that's not how it works. And I guess another aspect of this that's been pretty difficult, which I guess I actually unironically mentioned this in the beginning of this video. People love to prey on people who are more mature for their age. And for me, it kind of became this like mind fuck because I don't know what I want to or not talk about. There were certain situations that I got wrapped up in, especially around the ages of 16, 17, actually even 15 years old, that were a direct reflection of me being taken advantage for my maturity. But that's kind of what the mind fuck was, looking back on it at least, which is that I've known that I've always been more mature for my age, but then I look back at situations like that and it's like you clearly weren't mature for your age because you got taken advantage of. And then it plants the seed in your head of, oh my god, when I was 15 I should have known better, I shouldn't have let that person do that. And it's like, no, you were 15, like you don't know any better. And a lot of growing up for me and maturing has been forgiving my younger self, because I feel like I was so like, oh, I'm so mature, I'm 17 but I'm like, you know, 20, and then stuff would happen to me because I was 17 and I wasn't actually 20, and then I would get mad at myself because I was supposed to be mature, like I thought I was more mature for my age. It's not that simple. It's really not. And again, I find myself kind of having to pick up the pieces of, you know, the aftermath of these situations. And it's not like easy. It actually kind of like really sucks. And now I feel like I'm in a weird position where I feel like I'm trying to be more mature, but I also recognize that there is that inner child that needs healing and that he needs nourishment and comfort, because that was something that I didn't have. And it's also interesting because I don't know, I literally am like always thinking about everything all the time. If you know me or you've seen any of my videos before, you've probably noticed I have this very like soft and gentle vibe and aesthetic, and that's kind of what I go for. That's a direct reflection of my childhood and the lack of nourishment and protection and comfort that I didn't receive in my childhood. And so now it's like I'm trying to fix that so then I can move on to whatever's next. I hope that doesn't come across as like, you know, I'm only doing all of this so that I can heal and then I'll completely change and I won't be this, you know, soft little person anymore. That's not what I'm saying. I guess I'm just saying that for me personally, a lot of my maturing as of lately has been trying to course correct things that have happened in my life and try to heal parts of myself that I didn't think I needed healing, because I just spent so many years covering it up. So I was like, you know, it doesn't affect me anymore, but it does. Everything does. It's been hard for sure. It's been exhausting. It's been scary and emotional and all of these things, but it's important to me that like I said, I course correct, because I think I need to, fix everything that happened in the past so that way we can move forward and keep going. One of the things that I've learned the most after doing a lot of therapy is that I really don't feel safe ever, and that's been a pretty pivotal moment for me in my growing up. And it's not even specifically physically safe, it's honestly more emotionally safe. And that's why I've touched on this in a couple videos, and normally I say it in like a joking way because I don't know how else to really bring it up. I cannot cry. I cannot. Literally, it does not happen. I can't do it. And you would think I would, right? Like you see me and you see that I have this gentle vibe to myself. And that's also not like a character that I play for the internet. It's literally like just who I am as a person. But I feel like you see that and you think, oh yeah, he definitely is like really emotional and cries a lot. I am really emotional, but I don't cry. And again, through therapy, it's the thing that I realized is that never in my entire life have I ever had really a space where I felt like it was okay to do that. I was always kind of told growing up to just suck it up and get over it. It's not a big deal. You're a man. You should not cry. And that was pretty detrimental to me, and it's something that I still have to work on, and something that I'm still working on, because we all have our, I guess, different opinions and different outlooks on life and what we should or shouldn't do. But being a girl or a guy or whatever you want to be, I don't think you should be bottling up your emotions. I think that only does damage, and I think that only halts your growth as a human being. But I didn't have that. I didn't have a comforting space to talk about stuff or to really do anything. I try not to talk about this stuff because it kind of is like a little much for me, and it's also a situation that is like pending still and still ongoing. It's a chapter that is not closed yet, which is kind of why I feel a little weird talking about it. But I have a pretty is a generous, gentle word. I have a very strained relationship with my mom. I have not seen her in person in like 10, I think it's been 15 years at this point. She's an alcoholic. She actually recently got admitted into a rehab, which I think is a step in the right direction, but I don't really know too much about it. That's all I've heard. I bring this up though because that was kind of a big reason I feel like I kind of forced myself to grow up really fast. It's also interesting because I feel like I don't hear a lot of people talk about having, I feel like so many people are always like, daddy issues and stuff like that. And, it's not a competition of like who has worse parental issues, but I feel like I don't hear a lot of specifically guys talking about what it's like to not have a mom figure, because traditionally speaking, moms are supposed to be the comforting, nourishing figure in your life. I know that not everybody has that, so I'm not saying that's how everybody is, but I think that's kind of how a lot of people look at moms, is they're supposed to be the comforting figure in your life. And when you don't have that, and then you have a dad who, this isn't, I love my dad, but we have a pretentious relationship, to say the least, and he's like the polar opposite of me, like literally the polar opposite. Whatever you think I am, think literally the polar opposite, and that's my dad. And so again, it all ties back into, I didn't feel like I ever had a comforting space. I never felt safe. I never felt like, again, I want to preface like emotionally safe, although there were plenty of instances in my childhood where I did not feel safe because of my mom, but I don't need to get into that. I felt like being an adult was another word for being safe. I knew I wasn't safe in my childhood, even when I was going through it. I knew that a lot of the situations I was being put in and put through were not safe and not easy. And so I felt like once I got out of that and I turned into an adult, then it was like, now I'm safe. Not true. Not true. It's actually even harder now that you're an adult because you don't have people looking out for you anymore. And that's kind of hard for me to say though, because I felt like I didn't really have anybody looking out for me when I was younger. But now it's like, especially like nobody cares. And I don't want to say nobody cares, but it's different now. Everybody has their own lives. You can't be focusing on people like that anymore. It's a different scenario. It's a hard scenario, but it's a whole different situation. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this video is really weird. I feel like nobody's gonna understand. They're just gonna be like, you're trauma dumping. Like, we don't care what you have to say. I do hope that somebody can get something out of this video, and if you're somebody who also kind of views yourself as being more mature, whether you're my age or maybe you're a little younger, a little older, whatever it might be, I do hope this was maybe a little comforting to hear. I don't know what the point of this video was. Like, I don't know why I wanted to just sit and talk about this. I think it's just been top of mind for me recently, and it's been something that I'm actively trying to deal with. Being an adult is so weird. Like, it's so weird, and I get it. Like, I'm only 20, so like, I'm not trying to act like I've been an adult for so many years, but yeah, it's hard. It's really weird, and life is weird, and it's hard, and everybody's going through their own thing, and you don't want to bother people with your stuff, which is maybe one of the reasons I'm filming this video, is I don't want to bother people with talking about this stuff, but I also do want to talk about it. And I also think that, you know, I feel like if I was watching this video by another creator, I would feel a lot of comfort, because I'd be like, oh, you get it. Like, you get it. You know, I really wish I could write songs, because, you know, the reason I love someone like Taylor Swift so much is because when I read her lyrics and I listen to her songs, I'm like, you get me. And there's so many people out there who will never get it, because, you know, they only perceive Taylor Swift as shake it off, but they don't perceive her as, you know, the lyrics that she writes and stuff like that. But I say all that because making videos and doing this is like my version of that. I wish I could write songs. Actually, I do write songs, but I wish I could sing and put my feelings into songs like that. But for me, this is, you know, the next best thing, is making videos and trying to create this little comforting space for anybody who needs it. And if it's just me that needs it, then, you know, this video will do horribly, and I will get a bunch of people just telling me to get over it. So I don't know. I really enjoy making these videos. I literally just sit here, I have meditation music playing, it's really chill. It's like 9 o'clock at night. I'm just gonna turn the camera off and probably read, maybe color, and then go to bed. It's my eventful Saturday night. This is what I do on Saturday nights. Anyway, I think I'm gonna end the video off here. I love you so much. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you want me to continue with this series, then I definitely would love to. If not, then we'll move on and we'll pretend this didn't happen. I love you so much, and I'll see you soon. Take care, please. Please take care of yourselves. Okay.